Can you all hear
Hello,
static when I
Facebook.
talk?
Hello, Facebook. Hello, Heart for the Community. Hello, Stafford Black. Hello, Northern Virginia. Hello, Enough Facebook group. This is a tremendous day. I'm Carl Armstrong from Heart for the Community Initiative. I am Director of Operations for that organization, and I am your host for the Heart for the Community Initiative interview series. Today is a wonderful day. Heart for the Community was a part of the Stafford Rolling Protest, which was a great peaceful success. And I have before us a panel of people who were the organizers of that tremendous event and also some participants. We have Gary Holland from Stafford Black and from Enough and from Heart for the Community. We have Heather Hutchison, who was a tremendous participant and one of the speakers. We have Elder Chris Tucker, who is part of Heart for the Community. We have Naisha Diamond, Algis Diamond Wilson, excuse me. She is the the organizer for Stafford Black, and we have Miss Tia Terry, who was a tremendous participant. I tell you one thing, I'm excited. You should be excited too. And before we get started, we want you to start a watch party, call your friends and family. This is going to be explosive. There'll be so much great information. We're going to talk about the protest itself, and we're also going to talk about the movement. There's a tremendous movement going on not only in our nation, but in the world. The world has awakened to a humanitarian issue that is the tremendous systemic and historical racism in the United States of America. And it seems like what we're doing now, it's breaking its back. We're living in history, and we're talking to history makers tonight. So I'm going to let our panel introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Mr. Gary Holland. He'll go first. Please
Hello,
introduce
everybody.
yourself, Gary.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everybody. This is Gary Holland. Live in Stafford about 20 years. Served as associate pastor at Word of Faith in Dumfries, Virginia, and a volunteer with Stafford Black, an awesome group in Facebook that's really focused on doing positive things in our community. Also, part of the Enough Facebook group that has a focus on helping our communities in terms of educating the next generation, voter literacy, economic empowerment, and just helping our community to grow in different areas and be impactful civically as well. Again, just interested in helping however I can. Looking forward to this conversation and just glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Next, we'll have Miss Heather Hutchison. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I'm really grateful to be a part of this panel of phenomenal people that I'm getting to know. So I have lived in Stafford for about 10 years. I'm a single mother to 4 children, and have been working kind of at the grassroots level, mostly on my own, advocating for mental health changes in the mental health system, and also how that translates into the lack of a lot of mental health resources, especially for minorities in our schools, and then also in the prison system. And that's just been something that's been really heavy on my heart for about 15 years now. And I've done a lot of writing and had some things published, and just want to help make a difference and lend my voice to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next, we'll have Chris Tucker.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Christopher Tucker. I am a native of Birmingham, Alabama. I'm a transplant here to Stafford, Virginia, after serving in the military for 8 years. I am one of the associate ministers of Spirit of Truth Deliverance Church, and I am also a counseling student. Also, I work with Changing Attitudes and Behavior, a nonprofit organization that seeks to help minority men and boys in their mental health and reintegration into society. So I'm just happy to be here with these awesome people.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll have Miss Naisha.
Hi, my name is Naisha Algis Diamond Wilson. I am and have been a part of the Stafford community since 2005. I am a veteran of the United States Army. I am also a network engineer. I am also in the entertainment industry as an actress, model, stand-up comedian, and I am an activist that has been very active in the community which I come from, because I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and here in Stafford, Virginia. I am a wife, mother, and a ministry leader at my church, Destiny Church in Fredericksburg.
Thank you so much, Naisha. Well, now we have Miss Tia Terry.
Hello, I am Tia Terry. I am the Director of Community Relations at my church. I am a huge advocate for injustices, not just Black people, but period. I also am a business owner in the community, and I'm really big on just community relations, like anything. I am a mother as well. I have one child. However, with our youth department, I actually consider myself to having about 30 children. So that is a cause that is close to my heart as well. So that's me.
Well, thank you, Miss Tia. Thank you, everybody. What a tremendous panel. Well, we all know what sparked this movement, the horrendous and horrific videotaping of the murder of Mr. Floyd up there in Minneapolis by the hands of the police. So the movement at this point is centered around that latest incident. But of course, for all of us here, we know there's been a string, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. And there have been many things that have been happening on the national scene, on the international scene, and here on the local scene also. But I tell you, and just for the audience, for those of you who were not there, this rolling protest started in the parking lot of Walmart Marketplace in Stafford. We drove, and I don't know how many cars. It looked like it was about 100. I'm not sure if Naisha can tell us how many it was, but those cars rolled with Stafford County Sheriff's Department escort from there to the Stafford Courthouse, peaceful. There were so many citizens on Garrisonville Road and Route 1 who flashed the peace sign, the Black Power sign, and blew their horns and cheered us on. It was an amazing, amazing thing. For the first time in my life, um, as a Black man, I felt totally accepted by my society. I'm going to say that again. For
Wow.
the first time in my life as a Black man, being in that motorcade today made me feel accepted by my society. We pulled into the parking lot of the Stafford Courthouse and we marched around. And then we were there in the courtyard of the courthouse where we had several speakers. And so that organizer, from what I understand, the chief organizer was Naisha Wilson of Stafford Black. So I want to start with Miss Naisha. Naisha, ask you to speak up just a little bit. Your voice is so soft. To speak up just a little bit, and please tell our
Um,
audience how this started, as far as how you got the idea for this type of protest and how it developed, please.
well, I woke up from my sleep on Thursday morning, and it was just as I started Stafford Black is the same way that this came about. God gave it to me in my sleep, and I woke up and said, I want to do it, because I was trying to figure out ways in order to make our presence known here in Stafford, by causing as much um, uh, noise as possible, but trying to also play by the rules of which Stafford County has tried to put us in a box in, as far as protesting. So I was looking for ways. It's like, if that doesn't work, then that doesn't work. But I woke up from that dream, from my sleep, and it was
Ooh.
All right, we're sorry about that. We're having some storms in the area, and this is a live broadcast. And as we know, in live broadcast, things happen. But Naisha, I think you're back, so we're going to give you the microphone again. Go ahead.
I'm back, and it was. I just when I woke up from my sleep, I was like, I just want to do it, and I'm going to figure out how to do it. Um, and it worked. It worked.
Indeed, it did.
Yes, yes,
It
yes.
Well,
did.
we thank you for that. And Gary, I know that you were a part of it. Gary,
It
you've been a
was.
part of everything in Stafford. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Naisha.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that I called on a couple friends that I knew could help me get it together, and it worked. Yeah.
Awesome. Gary, I want to go to you. You seem to be a part of everything that goes on in Stafford lately. What were the roles that you played in this?
Yeah, I've known Naisha for quite some time. It's funny that the reason why I'm so super supportive of what she does and will just requires a phone call or a text or a message from her just asking if I can if I can help or if I can assist in any way. My daughters went to Mardi Gras. I think it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. All of my daughters went and they had some friends, and I had just met Naisha, and she suggested that my daughters connect with her family to see the real Mardi Gras and the part of New Orleans where her family's from. And they took such good care of my girls. And the fact that she opened her family to us like that showed me a lot about her. So since then, I've volunteered to be part of Stafford Black. And whenever she has an initiative, I definitely support her. She's given me the flexibility to do things also through Stafford Black. So whenever the organization does things and we try to reach the people, to bring the people together, families, supporting businesses in the area, etc., Stafford Black is at the tip of the spear in this area, trying to drive that message of inclusion within our community and to provide a safe space for us to come together and vent and share ideas and thoughts and support each other. So that's how I connected with her, and the organization, the group in general. And it's been a fun ride for the last year. Um, yeah.
All right, that's awesome. Well, I tell you, Naisha, you have a friend and heart for the community, and you have a member of Stafford Black and Carl Armstrong because I hit you guys up today. So if you accept me, I'll be working with you. Now, something extraordinary happened today. And normally, when you got something hot like this, you kind of do a build up to it, but I'm a little different kind of interviewer. We're going to start with the hot stuff. Now, I have been telling my friends on the times I jump on social media, I do my own little personal thing, and I'll put it on my personal Facebook page. I also have a YouTube channel called Carl's Conversations, and I've been talking and talking, talking. And one thing that I've asked is that I've asked for our Caucasian brothers and sisters to stand with us, right? Please, please, please stand with us because our Caucasian brothers and sisters have a unique perspective. Are privy to conversations that we are not within their families, within their communities, within their circles of influence, and they know the closeted racists, and they know some of the outlandish racists, and we know that this is the prevailing thing that's happening, that's causing the mistreatment systematically, historically, and presently of Black Americans. And I've been asking my Caucasian brothers and sisters, hey, listen, we need for you to call them out, right? Call them out and help us to educate them. Well, at that rally today, Miss Heather Hutchison stood up and said some things that blew my mind. Now, I'm going to tell you, Heather, you said
Yes.
what I've been saying, but I can't quite say it like you. I want you to tell our audience, if you don't mind, what you said and why you said it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, that's the reason that I'm here, and that's the role that I want to play, because I'm aware that a lot of the things that I'm saying and that I've seen and that I'm feeling are things that you guys have said to us and between yourselves. But I'm also aware that it might need to come from someone who is packaged like I am in order for it to resonate. And I'm grateful and humbled to play that part and take it seriously. I feel like it's a heavy responsibility in a in a good way. Like it's an honor for me. So I really felt like I needed to put a challenge out to my white brothers and sisters to number one, change their language and their vocabulary. And I said, that it's been done in word and in deed by white people for generations, that we have said to Black people that they need to know their place. And it's time that white people need to understand we need to know our place. And I really believe that our place is to help usher in the true freedom and move into power and same civil human rights that we enjoy. And we need to make space for that, because the majority of people who are powers that be look like I do. And I hate that it has to be that way on one level, because I wish that that there were more powers that be who live in white skin who could hear the cries of your heart. But unfortunately, it's just not the way that has happened. And so I really believe that those people who are there today, the people who are listening, the people who are paying attention to us on social media, I want to be a voice that calls out those white brothers and sisters to say, this is our opportunity to make space for the Black brothers and sisters that we claim to love, to be able to say what they need to say. And if they're not being heard, then we take that message and we say what needs to be said by people who can hear us. And it does make a difference. I've had to call some people out, and I watch their face, because they know me. They know who I am, and they know my heart, and they, my kids and all those things. And when I call them out, I can see that internal struggle of trying to reconcile, this is someone who I love and trust and care about. And also I'm being called out. But I think that's a good thing, because I think it carries some weight, and they can hear those words resonating, as they go about their day-to-day lives, those things that I'm saying, that was offensive, or why did you say that? Or have you thought about this? So I really think it's our job to not just be educating ourselves, but, like you said, Carl, to be able to have those conversations, because they happen all the time. I was privy to that all through school and college and in churches. I've served in a lot of leadership in churches, but I wasn't really in the workforce until I got divorced, and I was naive and didn't realize how much of that conversation bounces around, and it's expected when you look like I do that you're going to be okay with that conversation. So I thoroughly enjoy being quiet and letting it go, like a fish, let him go a little ways and then come back and confront that. And I think that's our job. I think our job is to confront, to change our language, and recognize that we are saying things that are offensive, even when we think we're being helpful. I think we need to use our voice, but we need to use it with intention. I've seen some protests where I've heard a lot of really loud, angry white voices, and it just burns me up, because I don't want the white, angry voices to drown out the Black, powerful voices that need to be heard. So I'm just glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Heather. Let me tell you something. When you said that, it did something to me internally that I'm not quite sure that I can communicate yet. I'm still processing. It was so powerful to me to hear one of our Caucasian brothers and sisters take responsibility for communicating uh, this tremendous message. And I want to ask. I'm going to start with Chris and then Tia. When you were there and you heard Heather speak, what did that do to you? I'll start with you, Chris.
Well, for one, it absolutely, like you said, blew my mind. Like I said, I'm a native of Birmingham, Alabama, and that there are still places in Birmingham where you know what side of town not to go on. You know which houses not to linger in front of still to this day in 2020 in Birmingham, Alabama. And so again, to see one of our allies, right, that does not share the same melanated skin as me, give voice to the same things that I've been trying to communicate to my white friends. Um, it was absolutely mind blowing, and I'm so glad to have somebody on my side who stands beside me, who can articulate to them in their language, the pain and the frustration and the hurt and the anger, but also the hope that we can hopefully bridge this gap between us, come together and work together for a common goal.
Thank you. How about you, Tia? What did that do for you to hear what Heather said today?
Actually, I thought that it was pretty amazing hearing from Heather. For me in particular, I was actually on doing a live video when Heather went to speak. And prior to doing that live video, I had just told another protester, I said, I think that at these protests, because this was the second one I attended, the third one I attempted to attend, I said, I think at these protests we should give the opportunity for someone of another ethnic group to speak. And then I went to do a live video, and I didn't realize that she was up. So when I stopped the live video and I heard her, I said, "Oh my gosh!" And I ran back up and I started actually recording her. That same protester asked me, and I shared this with Heather after the rally. I said, the protester asked me had I ever experienced racism, and I had to be really transparent and say no. I actually haven't, and that's strange coming from a black person who grew up in Georgia. I'm from Atlanta, but I grew up in Georgia. I mean, racist South, and but I can say I never really experienced racism. Did it exist? Probably, but I did not have it didn't personally affect me in that way. But I said that it doesn't have to really affect me. If it affects anyone that I know, then it affects me indirectly, and I take it. I'm an empath. I take it on as my own. So what Heather said was really powerful because one of the platforms that I have been standing on, and I share this with her too, is how to engage other ethnic groups. Because I feel like if we do not take the opportunity right now that everyone was in a stay in place shelter to view what happened to Brother George Floyd, if we don't take advantage of this opportunity to engage all the ethnic groups, I think we're going to do ourselves a disservice. So I think that we have to be intentional about recognizing them, acknowledging them. And I shared with Heather. I said, I know that you said on the microphone that we don't need you all, but I said I would respectfully disagree. We do need you all, not just white people, Indian people, Asian people, because African Americans only make up 42 million of the country's population out of 360 million. So, in order to win this battle, this war, because each battle will win the war, I think that we do have to engage them and we do need them to stand up. And it is no longer an option to be silent. So I'm thankful to her. I'm grateful to her. I welcome her to the fight. And I encourage her to invite other people. And I shared that with her too because I actually have something coming up that Gary is helping me with when it comes to bringing all ethnic groups to the table to speak. So I'm thankful to her. I think that it was beautiful. I cried, and anyone who know me knows I'm no crier, but it was
Thank you.
very emotional to see what happened today, and I went live with it. I'm a rebel at heart, so I'm thankful.
Thank you. All right, Gary, I want to hear from you. I'm gonna save the anchor for last night. So you're the anchor. I want to hear from you, Gary. What did that do to you to hear what Heather had to say today?
Well, I mean, I had the opportunity to hear her previously in a different environment, and I heard that message directed towards someone. So I think it was more impactful to me that day because of the circumstances. So I had already experienced that, but more than that, the thing that really impacted me today emotionally. I'm 52 years old, and when we were driving to the courthouse and all the other cars going the opposite direction, people were videotaping us and waving at us, etc., waving at the caravan. We made a right turn on Route 1, and there was a woman in the back seat of a pickup truck, and she was videotaping, and tears were just
Wow.
flowing down her face.
Hmm.
And it was nobody was in the backseat with her, and she was just videotaping, and I saw her crying, and that really touched me because I think you mentioned that you felt accepted today, but I felt at that point that the rallies, the protests, the loud voices, even the clashes with law enforcement here and all around the country are really starting to touch people and to touch people's hearts. And a lot of the racism is an issue of the heart. And I believe as a minister and as a Christian that only God can change our hearts. And I believe hearts are changing. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but seeing that today really did touch me, and it really did show me that the work that we've just started. I mean, Mr. Floyd was killed 12 days ago, and in 12 days, just here in Stafford, there have been three powerful rallies and marches, very impactful. There's been meetings with local government officials and law enforcement. There's been a youth forum where high school students were able to speak directly to the board of supervisors, members from the school board, members from the law enforcement, including the sheriff, at a neutral location, and they heard and felt, what these young people were saying. And at the end, when they all had a chance to talk, you could tell that what these young people were expressing to them opened their eyes and touched their hearts. So today was an extension of what's been going on this week. And this has been a busy week, but it's a week that I think is generating results and moving the needle slowly, but surely. And everybody that spoke today, everybody that brought water, everybody that marched and had a sign, white or black, old or young, and all of them were there, are contributing to the change of folks' hearts. And I think that's what needs to happen in order for anything that we're able to implement out of this to be sustainable and to be real and to result in us never having to view live what we viewed live 12 days ago. So several things have happened, Carl, that have been very impactful. Her speech and some of the other things that I've mentioned. But this has been a whirlwind. But I believe that hearts are really being touched. And I do believe that hearts will continue to be touched and to be changed as we continue to let our voices be heard and shout enough. And we're tired of it. And not only are we tired of what we've experienced, but we do have the resources and the capacity, as Heather mentioned, and the intelligence and the wherewithal and the vision and the purpose and the strength and the resilience, right? And the integrity to have all that we deserve. And we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop pressing. We're not going to stop demanding fairness, demanding to be heard. The young people are stepping up. They're uniting, right? And then we're going to keep on pressing until we have our fair share and until we get ahead of where we are, and we don't have to worry so much about some of the things that we worry about all around this country. So lots of impactful things this week and more to come.
Thank you. Now we come to the one that they call trouble. Miss Naisha, please share with us.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry, I was rocking from side to side because every time I hear Mr. Gary talk, the preacher come out of him, and I'm sitting in church and I'm
Yeah.
listening. Uh, I really, I really do respect him for the things that he is doing, and also trying to do and go deeper in the community. As we were, as my team and I were putting together this processional, what happened with the Stafford deputies calling and trying to make sure that everything would be they wanted to know the layout and what my idea was and how it was going to go and how many cars and he said we only usually do this for funeral processionals. And it clicked in my head. I was like, it is a funeral processional.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
going to bury this thing that is so uh, perplexingly the systematic racism. We were going to bury the hatchet so that we could uh, start a real conversation and start a real movement to actual change. You know, uh, we uh, he he told me that the deputy, Deputy Parsons, and he stated, he was like, well, it will only be about 25 to 50 cars that we could handle. And he said, Mrs. Wilson, how many are you expecting? And I said, I really can't tell you that number. And to see the amount of love that Stafford showed today for each other and for Black lives was truly, truly amazing. I sat in my car leading at the front of, and I was just thinking, this is something that I just never thought in my entire being would be something that God would allow for the people that I love and myself to be a part of.
Mm.
I met Heather at the on Sunday, and her words were so prolific. Her words pierced. Her words were captivating, and her words were true. And see, when you have someone that is speaking the truth, you have to give them the opportunity to continue speaking that truth to the people who needed to hear it. Because as much as I speak, as much as Tia can speak, as much as Gary can speak, as much as we can speak, she will speak, and she can speak to those who will listen to her. Because so often our words get muffled by, and the people don't hear it because they get stuck on something, because they get uncomfortable and they get stuck, and then they don't hear the rest of the message because they're offended. And so I needed to have her voice, for her to use her voice in that special way. And I believe that it all came together because it was God breathed
Yes.
and God touched. And I don't know how much you want me to say, but you know, um, I was I was just thankful because, first of all, my husband wasn't gonna let me speak if he found out that I caught a dizzy spell out there from the
Mm.
heat. Um, but I knew that I had a job to do,
Mm,
and I wanted to do it, and it was necessary.
thank you so much.
Because just as we have the Heathers, we had the Christophers and the Narees
Yes.
and the Pastor Kevins and the Laura Shays. Um, I, I, being how I am, I had to speak to my people because it's important to me what's happening right now. There's a shifting in the atmosphere. And whenever there's a shifting in the atmosphere, oh, you know what? Lord, speak. Listen, there's a song that says, if I told you what's required of you, will your spirit say yes? And there was a time where I was standing in church and I was singing that song, and it rang in my spirit, and I was saying yes, and I didn't even know what I was saying yes to.
Mm,
But because God allowed, and I allowed God to work, and I allowed God to use, it was something that I can be proud to say that it's changing, and there's a change, and we are a part of the change here in Stafford, Virginia. And that change will spread and spread from county to county, all the way out to the edges of the United States, what it was built on, that the hatred that it was built on. Our love is going to spread, and it is going to catch, and it's been catching like fire all over the United States and beyond.
Amen.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
no, 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 no. This is why we're here. Our audience really needs to hear this. I'm going to come back in a minute to that shift, but there's something that I think is very, very important. That I'm going to try to understand. Heather, I'm going to come to you because I want you to help me understand something. Help us, help our audience. Um, Chris and I were talking today. I told him, I said, Chris, I should have been out here last weekend, but I was not in the right headspace. And I didn't even say this to Gary. I didn't want him to be disappointed. But I still had that, I call it that stupid anger. I had the type of anger where I probably would have got locked up last weekend. And I think I'm not the only one who has felt like that, because when I saw what happened to Mr. Floyd, it ripped the scab off of a lot of wounds, even back to my childhood, just being so mistreated by our Caucasian people. And I remember being a little boy, not understanding, why do they hate us? What did we do? And Heather, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot. Uh, and I'm not saying that you are a purveyor of the hatred. I'm saying that you may have some insight that the rest of us don't have. And not only for us on the panel, but for the audience to understand as best as you can help us to understand. And then I'll come back to the panel to get some more action. So, Heather, I'm asking you to help us to understand the hatred, please.
Yeah, so I've had that conversation with close people in my life for a few years, and I don't know if my opinion is one that is shared widely, because I think that the people who probably would fall into the category of what I'm going to say probably can't see it in themselves. But I think that it's twofold, and it's based in fear. And I touched on that last week. I really have felt for years that there is something about the resiliency of spirit. There's something about the humility, but that is undergirded with such authority that comes from the Black community, that feels like I was saying to my friend the other day, the picture I keep seeing in my mind is, you see it in movies that portray slave time, and you see it in movies today, where there is a strong Black man nose to nose with a white man, and the white man holds the power externally, but the Black man doesn't look away, doesn't break the eye contact. And there is an authority and a strength in him that is being leashed, that I think that the white man, and I don't just mean physical strength, okay? I mean intellectually, spiritually, mentally, that I think that the white man knows is there and is infuriating, because it's something that he doesn't possess in himself. I don't know where that originates, other than the fact that, I believe if we go back to, where Jesus started out with brown and Black skin. But the second piece is, I think there is a envy that a lot of white people aren't even aware that they have. When a group of people is being persecuted and being oppressed, you see this in faith groups. We see it in underground churches across the world. There is a resiliency that rises up. That's just the word that keeps coming to me. There's a resiliency that rises up, a fire that's burning. There is a common bond. There is a shared trauma, which is not always a good thing, but it binds you together. There is an awareness that, we have to have each other's back, because the ones outside of us don't have our back. And I think that there is a desperation in white culture for that level of connection that looks like it comes so naturally to you. And I think it's misconstrued that it comes naturally to you because it's for survival. And I think we look around and we think, well, we don't have that same connection. We don't have that same, intertwining of families, of shared grief, of shared trauma that just binds together. When you weep with someone, when you grieve with someone, it binds you together. And white people miss it. We keep saying the two different protests that were happening, and with the white people coming out fully armed and asking for haircuts and all that stupid garbage, and I think that's it. We are easily inconvenienced, like it was said yesterday, and because we have always held the power in this country, then when something big happens to us, it grinds our world to a halt. And I said this, gosh, I think college. I said, I am fascinated watching, I'm going to try not to cry here, Black communities grieve, because there is not the opportunity to stop the way that white people do. White people come to a grinding halt, becomes all about them, and Black people come together as a unit and grieve together. And I would watch, I'd watch the 48 Hours and the true crimes, and would see this shared grief that I think white people are not jealous of the grief, but jealous of that connection. I think I took a roundabout story for that, but I think there's fear, and I think it's jealousy. When you have a group of people who is so powerful, and you know it, and you're terrified, then it brings out a lot of hate to try to keep that powerful group down and try to convince them that they are powerless.
Wow, I've never heard it quite like that. Chris, what do you think about that?
Well, I totally agree with her, and if we can kind of put a little bit of scripture to it in Exodus, that's exactly what the Egyptians said about the Israelites. They saw this nation of people, this group of people, and they were multiplying regardless of what was happening to them, and regardless of what they said to them and what they did to them. This group of people, this nation of people, still prospered, and so it became incumbent upon them. They said, we have to find some way to stop this group of people, and they literally say it because one day they're going to realize that they have the numbers.
Absolutely.
One day they're going to realize that they have power. One day they're going to realize that they have a voice. And so they systematically set out to kill all the men. And for me, as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a student of Black history, one thing that I see is that if you want to tear down any institution, if you want to tear down any group of people, you have to go after the head of that institution. You have to go after the head of that group. And that, and in the case of the family, in the case of the Black family, that is the Black man. And so for me, it's no surprise. It is a surprise, but it isn't a surprise that we have the Philando Castiles, that we have the Eric Gardners, that we have the Emmanuel Ellis out in Tacoma, Washington, that we just found out about within the last week, that we have the George Floyds, because that there seems to be, from a spiritual level to a physical level, there seems to be an attack on Black men, and it seems that there's this pervading feeling that, as Heather said, one day these Black people are going to realize, these African Americans are going to realize, these descendants of powerful people are going to realize that they have a voice, that they have power, that they have authority, and they're going to wake up and they're going to tap into it, and it's going to be game over for us.
Yep.
Wow. Wow. I'm gonna try to go a different direction here just for a second, unless somebody else has something to say. Does somebody else have something to say about that particular thing?
Yeah, I actually do. I love what both of them said, and it's so true. And one of the things that I just thought about was, I don't know, if you all know who Jane Elliott is?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Jane
Mhm.
Jane Elliott, she is a Caucasian woman. She was a teacher turned, now she's a civil rights activist. And one of the things that she said in a forum, it was in a conference, and she spoke about the whole abortion, putting a stop to abortion. And one thing that we as a black community, we initially thought, well, we really thought that this was to stop us from having abortions and, or to take away our rights. Let's put it that way. It was to take away, the right to choose whether we have abortions. And she brought another perspective, and it was so profound. She said that the reason that they push that so hard is to stop white women from having abortions because of the fear that minority groups are rising up and white people are becoming the minority.
Wow.
So she said, so it was to stop white women because, the system will have us to believe that black people are the only ones majority on welfare. Black people are the ones that, have the abortions. But white people have abortions and are welfare in exponential number as well.
Absolutely.
But, it's all about how you spin the narrative. So absolutely, I think that there's an underlying fear there. But I think that what we are doing today, and the good thing about what is happening today, is that we have an opportunity to raise a generation
Yes.
that thinks
Yes.
differently. I think that people will argue about, oh, should we do Blackout Tuesday, Blackout? We argue about certain things, but let's not get distracted because we have to attack this beast from different angles. We have to protest, but we also have to think we have another generation coming behind us, and it's our job to now feed that generation and spin it a different way. And that's another reason why I say we have to take advantage of what is happening today across the board.
Wonderful segue. This is where I want to go. Now, I wanted to go back and grab that piece because I think it's very, very important when we're having these open and honest discussions about this subject. You got a lot of people who are trying to understand, right? And all that getting understanding.
Yeah.
Now, we've been here before. Uh, our parents' generation were part of the civil rights movement. We've seen this 2015, there was a huge uprising. 2016, same thing. To me, this feels a little differently. This feels like we have finally caught some traction and we're going to go somewhere with it. I want to know from the panel, do you see the same thing? Do you feel the same thing? And if so, what are we going to do with it? And I want to start with Gary with that.
Yeah, Carl, I agree that it feels different. I think that why it feels different. I don't know. I'm a spiritual person, and I believe that there's a time, there's a season for everything, and maybe 2016 wasn't the season. Maybe 2019 wasn't the season, but for whatever reason, I do believe that now is a time where it's a season of change and I think that the thing that's most important that we need to step back and look at is how just within 12 days this is spread outside our borders, and people all around the world are saying, okay, you know what, enough is enough. United States, it's time to do something about what's going on. If you look at South Africa and apartheid, until they had the march in Soweto and the child was killed and the world took notice,
Yes.
that's when apartheid found its end. And look on the news, and this is taking notice. In spite of COVID, in spite of all of the things going on, there are people protesting throughout Europe and throughout other countries, and the focus is here. So now it's up to us to make a difference, and we need to protest. We need to continue doing that, but we need to, as Tia said, attack this beast from different angles. One of the angles we're embarking upon, and thanks to Vernon Davis, who's a business leader in Stafford, who has lots of connections and has really helped a lot over the last couple of weeks. He's led many efforts to really help us get to a point where we're having discussions and actually working on forming, committees or commissions to actually be able to talk to, our boards of supervisors, our sheriff's department, to hold them accountable, to review policies and issues regarding race, etc. So those sorts of things are starting to happen now. Additionally, there's a huge focus now, not on just registering people to vote, but explaining to them what's going on in terms of voting and legal issues. For example, we were setting up a forum with Jennifer Carroll Foy and several other high-ranking delegates in Virginia, and anybody that wants to join in, right, to learn about some new law enforcement policies that are going into effect on July 1st. They affect all of us, but most of us have no idea what they are. So they're going to explain to us what those bills contain, what those changes are. We'll be able to ask them questions so that we know what to expect and we know what to hold law enforcement accountable to, because we're going to open up some of the things that have been hidden from us, unless you were a politician or a political science student. In addition, we're going to learn about bills that didn't make it, that could have been for our good. So we can then step back and strategize as a community, right, to push our lawmakers to revisit those bills, to revisit those reforms, to put them back on the table. And then we can vote them out if they can't adhere to that. So things like that are happening now that I don't believe have happened in the past, collectively. And I think there's a collective determination to focus on the legal aspect, the governmental aspect, and Tia mentioned the economic aspect as well. There are things we're doing around economic empowerment, starting in Stafford, but the group enough that we formed has people from multiple states, and we're going to work together to unify and begin to implement initiatives state by state, town by town, county by county, state by state. And we're trying to make sure that we continue and sustain this multi-pronged approach that Tia touched on, because it's going to take more than a protest, more than sitting down across the table with a mayor or an elected official. It's going to take more than developing an economic strategy. It's going to take more than educating our young people. It's going to take more than understanding, how the voting system works, how the electoral system works at the local level. But if we do it all and we sustain it and we're committed to it, we will see change, and we'll be able to see change that's sustainable and that lasts and that's real. But we do have to step back and realize this is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? But together we can win this race. We can win it.
Thank you. Naisha, I know we lost you for a moment, so I'm going to ask you the question again because I want to get your input on this. I was saying that this time, this looks different. Different than 2015, different than 2016, and it feels different. And do you think that now we have the legs to go further and push through and really get something done? And if we do, what do we do and how do we do it?
Oh, yes, it definitely looks different. Look, um, I remember when Trayvon Martin was murdered, and I started an initiative then entitled National Blackout, the National Blackout Daily. What happened with that was that we came together for the one purpose of focusing all of our attention on that trial and showing unification in that way. And of course, it was a national thing. And it just seemed like we were wanting to make some type of change, but at some point we just weren't fed up enough, and then it was the Tamir Rices, the Sandra Blands, and then it was the Mike Browns, and it just started to just compile on each other. And I think that it's gotten to a point where people are finally fed up enough to really dig deep and look inside themselves in order to be provocative enough to want change and to not be afraid of losing things, status, money, position, name, fame, whatever. Like right now, there are so many folks across the board who are opening their eyes to realize that we have to do it together. And back then, it just seemed like there was so many different ideals and so many leaders. There was nobody that really wanted to follow through. And in order to serve a community, you have to know how to follow. In order to be a leader, you have to know how to serve. And many people weren't trying to serve anything except for lip service during that time. So right now, it the climate has changed, and these young people are fed up. I'm a millennial, but the younger millennials, I'm at the trail end of that thing. But the younger millennials are like, okay, listen, um, we have to do something. We definitely have to do something because not another hashtag.
Yeah.
I was driving in a car with my son today, who this morning, I saw something was wrong with him. He's 13 years old, I was like, "Are you okay?" And we're making our signs, and I'm like, "Son, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yes, ma'am." And I'm like, "No, I I I, I carried you in my womb for 9 months. I know when something is troubling you. What's wrong?" And my son said, "Mommy, it's just that my black skin should not be a death sentence, and I'm afraid, and I'm angry, and I'm sad, and I'm worried, and I'm confused, and I'm having all these emotions all at one time." And I was like, "It's okay, son, but I don't want my son to have to deal with that anymore. I am
Right.
fed up, and I'm tired of being sick and tired." And there are a lot of people who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. They are tired of hurting. They are tired of crying. They are tired of yelling. We want change, and we are demanding change at this point. Matter of fact, we are taking it, but we are taking it by force because it is needed. We have tried. Like my shirt said, when we was kneeling, you had a problem. When we were silent, you had a problem. But when we're dying, you don't say a thing. And we are sick of it. We are sick of it. And now we are united in a force. And yes, the atmosphere is changing because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And if we have to riot, we're going to have to riot because guess what? It is going to happen no matter what, by force or by not. But we will demand that all those people who are in seats, whoever we've elected, if they're not doing what were supposed to do, what they were called to do, we are going to demand their seats, and we're going to put somebody there who can do and will do and won't
Yes.
be about mouth service and won't be about being politically correct, because I ain't politically correct, but I'll take one of those seats and I'll make sure that I am making change for my people because it is time now, and I have no time to not be moving. I have to be moving. I'm in the vehicle and I have the people beside me who want to do it, and we gonna do it by
Yes.
force or whatever. But they know that I am coming. They know that we are coming. They know that there is power in our finances. If it wasn't, then the NFL wouldn't have been saying their apologies. But
Yep.
they want your money. That's the
Right.
only reason why they
Right.
apologize, but they still won't say Colin Kaepernick's name. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's call it what it is. They're only apologizing because they know that we are powerful, we are financially powerful. And right here in Stafford, black people, black people are we are richer here. Like the median income for black people in this area is more than white people. So let me tell you something. We
Nice.
have the money. We
Yep.
are paying. Listen, the deputies were going to do what I told them to do because I paid for them.
That's right.
And we paid for them. And
Mhm.
so a shift is coming and the season is here. And our words will not fall on deaf ears anymore. I'm sorry. I get worked up. Y'all know I'm
I
soft
love it.
spoken, but when I get worked up, I because I gotta speak the truth and I have to speak my
Yes.
heart.
Well, I thank you for that. That was a mic dropping little deal
Yes.
there. Listen, I am respectful of all of your time here. We're coming up on an hour, so we're going to start wrapping up. But this is what I want. Um, I'm going to give each of you a chance to speak to the audience. We witnessed a great thing today. Um, Mr. Floyd's daughter was sitting on the shoulders of one of the retired NBA basketball players, Steven Jackson, who was a childhood friend of Mr. Floyd. And she said, "My daddy changed the world." Let me tell y'all something. I've been crying and crying, but that thing right there touched me. Mr. Floyd, yes, sir. He changed the world. And we're doing things now that are changing the world. So as we part, I'm going to give each of you a chance to look in the camera and speak to our audience and tell them what's on your heart about this changing world. And we're going to start with Chris Tucker.
Well, everybody, again, my name is Christopher Tucker, and I want to say that I love each and every one of you. Recently, I was on Facebook and I was talking to a white lady who told me uh, that all lives matter when it came down to Black Lives Matter. And she told me to mind my house and she would take care of her house. And to which my reply was, America is my house.
Yes.
My ancestors built this house. And so I'm going to fight for this house and the
Yes.
creativity of Black people. The originality of Black people has once again done its thing. We have come up with a phrase that captures the heart of our cry, and that is Black Lives Matter. And when we say Black Lives Matter, we're not just talking about our physical lives, but we're talking about our economic lives. We're talking about our educational lives. We're talking about health care for our women. We're talking about mental health care for our children. We're talking about health care for our men. We're talking about everything that makes us Black in America absolutely matters. And it does not deserve to be put under a microscope as if it is some type of parasite, as if it is some type of disease. But this is a culture. This is a culture that has given America more than America has ever given it. So yes, Black lives absolutely matter. And to echo my sister Naisha, yes, we will do everything in our power, whether it's at the ballot box, whether it's withholding our funds, whatever it means, whatever it does, whatever we have to do in order to make our voices heard, because America is our house, and my house right now is literally on fire. And I'm gonna do everything that I can to preserve the members of my house while making sure that we institute change to why it seems like you don't care about my house and I should care about yours. So with that being said, Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, Chris. We'll go to you now, Tia. Please give us something.
Yeah. I'm going to use my time to talk about why I think that the questions that you said before, why do I think that it's going to be different this time? People were so quick to throw away 2020. And one thing that I've always been thinking about, meditating on, is that 2020 is the year of exposure. The reason why I feel that it's going to be different is we have been exposed. Other countries are on board because we've been exposed. Um, I don't think that it was a mistake that we were all in the middle of COVID-19. So we're coming off of the brink of a pandemic that touched every ethnic group, every economic class, every color, everyone. It doesn't matter what your status is. Everyone was touched by this pandemic. And so people were hurting from that. And coming off of the heels of that into now you have George Floyd plastered across your screen for almost 9 minutes. You watched the life leave this man's body. You watched the evil in this cop's eyes. You cannot unsee that. It is the season. People were looking at that. People were hurting. Everyone was affected. Van Jones said something very profound. He said that white people have been affected in ways that they didn't even know was possible. Their heart has been broken because they thought that they hoped that somehow we were understating or over exaggerating racism. And so it's been exposed. So I think that definitely is a change. I think that we can no longer afford to be silent. It's to the point where I will remove and block and delete someone for their silence. Um, but I think that I'm excited. I'm open, not just for my Black people, but for anyone. I make myself available to speak to. And I just have to say to you all out there in the audience, if you need me, hit me up, and I'm ready to march on till victory is won.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Tia. Heather, please speak to us.
So I feel that it's different as well, and I am amazed at what Gary said about that it's God's time. And I was thinking about what Naisha said with the song, and I had to laugh because about 3 years ago or so, I had that song on repeat. And I had that song on repeat because, I was trying to convince myself, as I said, saying the say yes part. I needed that to go down deep into my heart because, to be really honest, I felt a few years ago in a time of intense praise and worship at church that God was wanted to put a mantle on me, and I didn't want it. And I said, I know you're asking me to do this, but I felt like Jonah. I wanted to say, please find somebody else because the cost is going to be too high. And I wrestled with him for quite a while. And during the past 10 years, and especially in the last 3 years, I'm looking back, just even after this week, looking back at all the ways that he is so strategically woven each of us. And I believe that means that this is happening at a microcosm of what's happening across the nation. I think that there are other Naishas and other Garys and other Heathers and Tias and Carls and Christopher. I think that this is happening. And I really am ready now. I wasn't ready then. He was teaching me, taking me through school. I would watch documentaries, read the books that I was finding on my own that I didn't know was going to be a hashtag or a thing or resources shared. I just was desperate to know because I was hurting and I had this burden. And kind of like what Naisha said, I didn't even know what I was saying yes to, but I knew it. I could feel it, and I knew it was bigger than myself. And a part of me, again, didn't want it. And he had to get me to the place where I was making all these connections. Yesterday at the youth forum, Mr. Paul came up to me. I chased him down in a Walmart a year and a half ago because I liked his shirt. And his son has autism. And I ended up spending some time with his family, helping them get resources because I have special needs children. And then today at the protest, one of the young women who's a Muslim woman, she and I connected just randomly about 8 or 9 months ago, and she's an artist, and she asked if she could paint me because she was doing different things with her stories, and I hadn't really talked to her much since then, and she was there. And all these places that God is just weaving, just even in my life, people together and experiences together that I want to laugh in excitement and in hope because I know it's different now because I feel him and I see him in such a strategically moving way. And I firmly believe that our group right here is being multiplied and happening all over our country, and that it is just the beginning, and things have to change, and there are going to be some hard days. And I know that there is going to be a cost. And I think that's what's scary for white people is they haven't had to pay a cost yet, but I will lead the way. I will lead the way, and I am honored to do so. And I'm so humbled to be with such a group of people who love God and who love their community, and was just blown away by today and the riding down those streets, Naisha, watching them. I thought we were going to get annoyed looks and a whole bunch of angry people. Yeah. I was just, I couldn't even, I just wept. I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't. So something is happening, and something is happening in Stafford, and I believe it's going to catch fire. I do. I think you guys need to hold on because you're going to move some mountains.
Thank you so much. Gary, please.
Hey, just briefly, the thought that's on my mind in closing is Romans 12:4. It says, for each of us has one body with many members,
yes.
But not all the members have the same function. We can't make the changes or take part in initiating the changes that need to take place in our country without each other. And I would ask everybody that's listening, if you want to get involved, if you are involved, listen to yourself when you talk. If you hear more I's than we's, more my's than us's in your speech, then step back a little bit and examine yourself. We can't do this without each other. There's a concept called synergy, and where you think about it is 1 + 1 = 3. It's because we can do more together than we can as individuals. And in order for this movement to make a real difference, not only do we need God as a part of what we're doing, we need each other. We need each other. We need black, we need white, we need brown, we need Asian, we need Latino. We need to come together
Yes.
across socioeconomic barriers. We need to come together with a similar heart, and we need to make sure that we're pressing together in unity. And we will see differences made, y'all. We will see lives change. We'll see lives saved. We'll see a huge difference. But we have to do this together. Pride, having the spotlight, having the microphone has no place right now. We need to come together, humble ourselves, and
Yeah.
work together to protect our children and to create a better place for future generations. And that's really what's on my heart right now is unity and teamwork and togetherness. And together, we can strike a mighty blow against the forces that are geared up to hold us back. But I think we can do it together.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
Naisha, you have the anchor, my dear.
If I told you what I really need, will your spirit still say yes? There is more that I require of thee. Will your heart and soul say yes? All it took was a yes. Let me tell you, I am such an introverted person. I don't hang out with a lot of people. I don't know a lot of people. I just am to myself. And God had to break me free from that. Having Stafford Black brought me to a village. It allowed me to see that I had a village here where I was feeling so lonely, also here. And Stafford Black and togetherness in the people that I've met only because I said yes. God woke me up and told me to start that group, and everything fell into place. I met the Garys. I already knew the Tias, and now I'm meeting the Heathers, and there's the Alicias, and there's the other Gary Greens. There's so many people that have come together, and now it is time for action. Stafford Black started last year. I didn't know exactly or what totally it was going to be, but now I am seeing so much clearer now that the village will come together to put everything into place as needed. And if we trust him together, we can do it. And that is all I have to say.
Well, thank you all. This has been a tremendous panel. And for those who don't know behind the scenes, we just put this together a couple of hours ago. But the move of God today and the way God moved in his people today, um, you guys are right. Unity displayed itself today. And I saw the love of God in many people. I'm going to admit to something, and I think this ties us in. For years, we've always asked, as the black race, don't judge us by this and that. And I'm gonna tell you something. On that motorcade from the marketplace Walmart to the courthouse, I saw some of our Caucasian brothers and sisters who didn't look the part in my mind.
Same.
They,
Right,
they didn't
right.
look like they were the ones who would have blown their horn, and they
Yep.
didn't just blow their horns. They pumped the black power.
Yep.
Yes,
I
yes,
saw some good old boys and some pickup trucks with
Yep.
some trailers on the back.
yes,
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
yes,
We're talking about this change and this push. And that's one of
yes.
the reasons why I said, at 48 years old, and that motorcade today was the first time I felt like my society accepted me. The black culture always did, but not
Mhm.
always the rest. So I learned something today that we can't judge the book by its cover. And I don't know exactly what happened because it wasn't just seeing Mr. Floyd. Something had to be brewing before then.
Hmm.
I'm just thanking God that now is the time. I thank God for all of you. This is not the last time that we'll share a screen together because I plan on doing great work. There is much work to do, and I
Yes.
plan on working with you all. Thank you so much for coming on the Heart for the Community platform, for giving us your time. You are awesome. You're important, and now the community knows who you are. Stafford Black, you need to be looking her up if you want to get into the movement on Facebook. There's a group called Enough, #Enough, Heart for the Community Initiative. That's the organization that I belong to, along with some of the others. There's plenty of work to do. And Tia even said, hit her up. Her name is Tia Terry. You can find her on Facebook. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Believe me, we'll be back. There's so much more to do. Please go to Stafford Black's Facebook page to see what's going on. Please go to Enough. I'm going to post some stuff also on Heart for the Community. There's much to do. There's another rally tomorrow. The NAACP is sponsoring a rally in Stafford, I do believe.
Mhm.
So if you go to the Enough, did you post that on Stafford Black also, Naisha? Okay,
Yes, yes, I did.
thank you. If you go to
Thank
the
you.
Stafford Black Facebook page, you'll see that also. Let's not quit. Let's rally. Let's protest. We're going to do it in peace. We're not going to tear
Hmm.
nobody's stuff up. We're going to let the light of Christ shine through us. But that doesn't mean that we're wimpy
Amen.
because we're coming
Amen.
with unity. We're coming with strength. And we're coming with the power of the vote. So God bless you. May heaven smile upon you. Until next time, good night.